So I work in project management, and my job is to lead people to deliver things. I work in a world where sometimes we're face to face with some of our team members, but the vast majority of the time we're not. It's a virtual based working environment that we live in nowadays. One of the frustrations I keep coming across with my team and the teams around me is that there tends to be a reluctance for face-to-face interaction with a cameras on mentality. And I have tried the carrots and I've tried the sticks to encourage the concept of have your cameras on when you're meeting with somebody online. And I continue to get a lot of blowback, and there's a grumpy old man inside of me that just wants to rant and rave and yell, and maybe in other videos you've seen me do that grumpy old get off my lawn kind of mindset on this mentality of, hey, it's your job, you should just have your camera on. But the reality is there's truth in the value of you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And here's the simple truth about having your cameras on when you're meeting virtually with people. It brings you together and it makes you real. It makes you authentic. When I say cameras on, it's not just the camera on, but it's being able to see you and see your face. Don't have your camera on and have half your head cut off or put up something to block it so you can't actually see you. It's about coming together and having an authenticity. I'm reading Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. It's part of my CEO's book club that's kind of turning into my own little book club here on my project and stuff that I'm recommending. And he talks a lot about a whole lot of things and building networks and how to be effective and stuff like that. And the most recent chapter I'm kind of coming through talks about the authenticity of it all. And the fact is, there is something lost when you can't see the person that you're talking to. Like, yes, physically being in the room with them is going to be at another level of authenticity than being just on camera with each other. But having cameras on and seeing each other when you're in a meeting, when you're having a conversation with somebody, is still more authentic and brings a realism to the situation and a humanity to the situation than when your camera is off and you're just having audio. And audio obviously is taking it to another level of authenticity and realism than just texting it back and forth. How many times have we seen a text or read an email or read a ping message or read a post and we inflect our own personal tone of voice and with our own perspective into it, and we read something into it that may not actually be the reader's intent? They use the same words we would use, but if we were to write them, we mean it in tone A and they mean it in tone B, and it can throw everything off. But if you add audio to it, now you hear their tone of voice, you can hear some sincerity with it. But if you add video with the audio to what you're talking about, you now get all those nonverbal cues that go with it to build effective communication, which is always a positive. But more importantly, you start to see the other person as a human that you're trying to work with, not against. You see it that this person that you're communicating and talking with isn't coming after you in a negative way. They're trying to work with you as your partner, assuming you're in a collaborative working environment and not on a debate stage or something. It lends itself to, why is there so much road rage on the road? Why do I fall guilty to road rage? I call it road intolerance more than road rage, but potato, is because when I'm out there on the highway and I'm driving down the road, that car that just cut me off or did something stupid, in my opinion, isn't a human being. It's a car. It's a machine. I don't see the humanity of the person that's behind the wheel, and so I'm not ashamed to just let my anger fly at this terrible thing that they did. But if I saw him as a human and I connected with him as a human, I'm going to recognize an authenticity there. There's going to be a connection there. There's going to be a forgiveness there for whatever it is that they did, that maybe it wasn't malintent that they cut me off. Maybe it was. Who knows? There are just jerks in this world. But when, how does that tie into the work environment? Like, these are your coworkers. These are the people that you have to collaborate with in order to succeed in your job. And you might be living on West Coast and East Coast and Central zones and everything else, but you still got to partner with them, and you don't see them. You're not going to see them physically, possibly ever. I've got coworkers that I've had come into my life and leave my life, and I never physically met them. And if I didn't have the camera on, or they didn't have a camera on with me, they're never more than honestly a computer screen to me most of the time. Sure, audio helps take it to another level beyond a ping and a text, but having that camera on and having that connection brings the humanity together, and it brings the team together. And if the whole point of being on a project together is to collaborate together and to succeed together, then you need to be together using whatever means you can. And that's the whole point. It's about us coming together and being able to communicate effectively. It's not meant to exhaust us. It's about bringing that reality. And you might look terrible on screen. So does everybody else at some point or another. And somebody might look really dolled up and nice all the time. And that's okay too. But it brings a realism to it. And when somebody is real, when you believe in them and you see them as a human, your respect for them innately goes up a little bit. Now, you might lose respect for a person because of action A or action B, but you initially at least give a level of respect once you see that they are human, and you treat them with a certain level of respect by default, just by seeing them. Because now they're a person. They're not just a name on a screen or a voice coming out of a speaker. They're people. And there's the value of coming together and being one with each other and being true with each other. And then who knows, you might get to meet each other someday. You might run into each other in a crowd and be like, wait, I know you. But if you've never seen each other, if you've never had that visual collaboration, then you just don't know. I've had people that come into the office that I've only ever spoken to virtually, and if I haven't seen them on camera, I don't know who they are. I haven't seen them talk a lot and put a voice with a video with a picture to that sound, and then they come into the office. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know you. But you know what? They know me. They come right up to me sometimes and be like, hey, Matt, good to see you. Good to meet you in person. And I'm like, great, who are you? Is it because I've just not worked with you closely? Possibly. But you know how I would have worked closely with you? If we were on camera together. If we were on meetings with cameras together. And yeah, there are negatives to having cameras on all day. If you just have to sit in front of a camera all day for 8 hours straight, it's exhausting. You're constantly thinking about things. Sometimes you just need to scratch your eyeball or pick your nose. We're humans, right? It happens. You need to scratch your ear a little bit, and you don't want people to see that. I get that. There's times where you want to, still be putting your best foot forward. But at the same time, there's a realism to it. Maybe you don't want to see people see you sneeze, but you know what? Everybody sneezes. It's okay. And at the same time, the work from home environment allows us to kind of dress down a lot for a professional environment sometimes, which has value. It can be nice to not have to wear a tie or a formal dress or a formal outfit. Or I don't have this problem, ladies, with the hair, but getting your hair ready for the day, I'm sure I've seen my wife do it where it just takes forever. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. But there's also something to be said for if you decide, hey, I'm going to be on camera today, and so as a result, I'm going to dress just a one notch up rather than a hoodie, and sweatpants. Then, it can also bring around a subtle mental activity of professionalism and development and focus on the work that you're doing. It lends itself to the argument of, should students be required to wear uniforms in school, and what are the pluses and what are the negatives? And that debate has raged, and well, there's value in giving the freedom to the individuality so we can be creative, which is a very valid argument, absolutely. But there's also validity to the argument that when you dress professionally, you tend to act professionally, you tend to take things more serious, you tend to be more in the moment. If you're dressing down and you're looking kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, slobbish, then, it's easier to be distracted. There's something to be said for putting on a nice outfit, so that you take it. Going to church, do you put on your Sunday best or your Saturday best or whatever faith that you might have and dress up to a little bit extra level? Why to do that? It's a reminder of the importance of the situation. So maybe if you have to have cameras on, or you do have your camera on, it's a way for you to self-check yourself. You're like, hey, my camera's going to be on, my coworkers are going to see me, and I want them to see a better version of me than, ratty holy t-shirt and jeans guy, or, sweatpants guy. I want them to see a little bit better. Sometimes days are going to be days, and there's nothing wrong with the little authenticity of a dressing down as well. But I think that's what a lot of this whole camera mentality I've really come to believe in is doing, is like it brings us together, and that is the point. We're meant to be a collaborative team, and we're meant to be collaborative. You have to see each other as humans. You have to see the other person. You have to recognize them, and the most authentic way to be a coworker and a collaborator is to do it physically in person. There is value for going back into the office, the relationships that you build in those in-between moments, because you have that time in the office with them is invaluable, and I get that. And this is coming from a guy that does not want to go into the office 5 days a week. I'm all for a 3-day a week, maybe 4. I certainly don't want to go in 5 days a week. Commute, the drive, and all of that, it's exhausting. So, I get it, that we don't always want to do that, but there's value in it. And if we're not going to always be together in the office, which has a lot of pluses, then at least have your camera on when you jump onto a meeting, and not just a camera on for the sake of the camera on, but to be in the moment. There is a lot of nonverbal communication that goes through that people can debate the value of, but it doesn't change the fact that there are nonverbal cues. You can see who's watching your screen, who's not watching your screen, who's distracted, because you can tell they're looking a different direction than the way they normally do for your screen share, because they just got a ping that they need to go answer. And you can draw their attention back in. And it can also save a couple of few seconds, because if somebody starts talking on mute and their video's on, you can warn them quicker and faster. By the way, you're talking on mute, but I can see you have something to say. And hey, in the digital age, every keystroke, every mouse click, every second that we spend doing something adds up. All those little things that you do add up over the course of a day. And how many seconds do you waste because somebody may have been talking on mute, didn't have their camera on, and they didn't know they're on mute? Now they got to go through their whole spiel all over again. Whereas if you could have communicated, well, hang on, I can hear you saying something, before you get too far, you're on mute. And you can get them to circle that back. That might only save 5-10 seconds in a meeting. Add that up against 10-15 different team workers across 7 different meetings on any given day over the course of a week, and how much time did you just save wasting? Like, I'm making up numbers here for the sake of the debate. There's a lot of pluses to having your cameras on, and I strongly encourage that if you can't work in the face-to-face, in person in an office together, or you choose not to, have your camera on more often than not. There'll always be times for cameras to come off. We get it. I understand. I don't have mine on 24/7. It's exhausting sometimes to do that. But in those meetings where you can be together, where you are going to be collaborative, or where your boss has said, hey, we want you to have cameras on. We're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to be bullies. We're not trying to shame. There's not a negative connotation established with it. It's meant to bring us together. So think about that next time you want to have your camera turned off instead of on at a morning stand-up, or an afternoon workshop, or a midday sync-up. Turn your camera on. Hey, you get on a one-on-one call with a coworker to work through a problem, both of you turn your cameras on, even if it's just one-to-one. There's a humanity and a connectedness that's going to come there that I think is a really great value. And I'm sure there's numerous studies out there that we can all Google that would tell us that either I'm right or I'm wrong. This is just my perspective. My experiences have been around. I've worked the face-to-face. I've worked the virtual environment. We've lived through the pandemic of moving into a completely virtual society, and now we live in a hybrid society, and we're losing some of that humanity. We need to bring it back.